This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and our personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40 minus 39, and together we have a shared vision for success in business and our personal lives. Many successful people have started small just like us, but very few of them have documented their early years. They often say they wish they had, and given we believe in learning lessons from others, we intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. We'd like to start each episode with a brief update about our daily lives and our business so that when we look back on this in the future, we know roughly where we're at in our lives. But today's main theme is going to be about achieving goals you never thought were possible, why you set goals poorly, and why you can't execute them. But to get started, Sander, what do you have to report in your business this week?
Made a couple new connections at another kava bar in regards to just like general business stuff. A couple good people to know and meet and stay connected with. Odds and ends regarding business work with our new business and as well as podcast stuff. You can talk more about that. That was largely your work. And then in terms of life updates, it's also pretty short, but we'll get into that after the business stuff.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that we had an insanely productive developmental session with an expert member of our field. We did a lot of brainstorming and we got a lot of fucking like home run ideas from that meeting we had earlier this week. I think that was fucking awesome and I'm excited to have more of them. And then on top of that, like the next day we were talking about like that meeting and similar issues and we came up with another fantastic idea. And I'm really excited because I don't see anybody else in industry like having these thoughts, let alone executing them.
Right.
So I'm really happy to see that. We also had somebody who we have spoken to about business before. He's a younger guy, but you found out this week that he started his own business and he's fucking crushing it.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I wanted to give him a shout out, not by name, but just, you know who you are. We're really proud of you. You're doing fucking awesome. I have it written down as mentee. He wasn't even really, like, we just speak about business sometimes, but he's younger than us. He has less experience, but he's fucking crushing it, and I'm really happy. I'm really excited to see what he's got going on.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we're doing a little bit of a rebranding with Vision 79. We're taking inspiration from the Modern Wisdom podcast. I think that our previous thumbnails, although accurate to our studio setting, because we don't have much in the way of the studio, aren't very clickable and don't fairly represent the quality of content that we bring. So we're revamping the thumbnail. We're adding a little bit of color. We got some posters in the background for this one to do the best with what we got. And I'm excited about that too. So I went through and I updated all of our social media platform items in the past few days. Those are my business items. Tell me about your life.
Both of us have been working on a friend's car this weekend.
Yep.
Buttoning it up for him, getting it reliable so that he can drive it safely. Work has been relatively busy. I actually did some solid work this week. And got in trouble for my time card. Ironically, like one of my better work weeks where I put more effort in, I got in trouble for something that actually wasn't in my hands, which is kind of interesting. Usually I get in trouble on bad work weeks when the stuff is completely in my hands, but this was kind of like Uno reverse card week. But
normally when I hear about time card problems, it's people submitted hours they didn't actually do. What actually happened with your time card this week?
I got locked out of the portal and it wouldn't let me reset my password, and I spent over 2 hours with customer service on the phone and they also couldn't do it, and then they neglected to submit my ticket, and then when I called back they finally submitted my ticket, and then when I called back again twice to get updates about the ticket status, they first time told me I had to wait, and then second time refused to answer the phone. So I was stuck emailing my hours to my manager at the end of the week for the previous 2 days, and he was livid for whatever reason. So I guess I won't do that again. Maybe I can just fix that company and password reset system.
It sounds like it's solely your fault, and I think Ray should be fired for it.
That sounds about right.
Anything else? Anything positive in your life? That's going well. Pick one thing that's going well.
I don't really have much. I really try to think about it, and like honestly, it's kind of funny you asked that question because I really felt like at a loss this week, like kind of a dud. I don't know.
Why didn't?
I just feel like a lack of direction, and like I think it's really well defined by anxiety is too many options with no track of like how to choose one, and then depression is time to choose options, but not having enough options, right? Essentially. And I felt like the latter this week. And I don't know why. Like, I would open my laptop and I felt like, well, I like could do this little thing, but like I don't like it's not really productive for like I don't feel like I'm gonna move the process forward by doing this. Like I can continue to do this Canva item, but it's like, you know, is there something more meaningful I could do? And I didn't really like stumble onto anything more meaningful. So I just kind of felt like at a loss this week, kind of like buttoning up odds and ends when I could. And I think I got a little bit frustrated with how many like people in general texted me this week. And I'm also frustrated at myself for how much I entertained that messaging. Like when people would text me, I would respond, you know?
Why is that
like,
a problem?
I wish that I just wouldn't respond.
But if you don't respond and you have nothing else to do, then what are you going to do?
Well, it's like I do have other stuff to do. I just didn't feel like, I don't know, I just felt a lack of direction this week.
Interesting.
Like it was, like there were a couple things to do, but like it was like if our business is a train and we're moving along the train tracks, it feels like we're stuck at a station and I've explored all aspects of the station and I could like go and explore them better, but it's not really like going to the next station.
Interesting. I feel like, especially after our meeting on Thursday this week, it's like while we're stuck at the station, we're cleaning the train and we're upgrading the beds and we're making the benches nicer and we're like, you know, designing new, whatever, food trains and sleeping pods and stuff to improve it so that when we get to the next train where there's actually people to get on the train, it's way nicer. So it's like, while we're stuck at the station, we could stare at the shops at that station, but like it doesn't really matter about this station because what matters is the train. So with all the items that we thought about on Thursday and then further developed on like Friday and Saturday, I think each one of those has a lot of thought that can be put into it. And the thought that we put into it now will be felt down the road when there's 500 other crushing major issues coming at us, but we don't have to worry about this social media post or that regulatory.
And I see it that way too. I don't know if it's a function of the fact that I took on too many problems of other people this week. Like, I wanted to say goodbye to my friend, so I went to that friend get-together. I only spent like a half hour there, but, you know, I went there. That was spent a half hour, came back, and then, you know, working on the car and stuff like that is something I wanted to do for a friend, but also, like, you know, anytime you do something like that and the car's not in perfect shape, you always run into issues that you don't expect, and then it draws on, and, you know, it's like, you know, all the tools in my car is just such a mess, and it always takes me like an hour to an hour and a half to clean up after a job like that, to put everything away and shit like that. So it's like I look at that, my car is a mess with all these tools, and then I had to do this party thing, and then the car's not even finished, we have to go and finish it, and then it's like other people texting me about random shit or car stuff, or this guy last week with the wheel bearings, like he's texting me about wheel bearing things, and it's like I just kind of want to shut it all off.
Why don't you?
That's what I'm going to do next.
Cool.
Yeah, because I'm over it. I had this revelation on the drive here.
I think you've had this revelation before too.
I have, and I was good about it for a while, and then I fell back a little bit, and so I'm redirecting myself to not deal with that kind of shit.
Cool.
So I think that's my life update for this week. I was just I'm frustrated with how much I've dipped my toes into other shit that I don't really want to.
Cool. I've done the polar opposite. I'm stoked about all the business stuff that we're doing, and I like all the progress that we're making. I upheld my biking routine that I talked about last week, so I went back out again this Friday at 6 a.m. and crushed that bike. And then I said I wanted to eat healthier, so for my girlfriend's birthday, we did like the dessert thing as like the last hurrah. And I've stuck to that. I've been eating healthy, which is sick too. So I've been hitting all of my nutrient goals and macro factor. So I'm super fucking happy with how this week went. And I'm excited for tonight and then next week too. I think that at least the car that we're working on, I think has more value than just working on a car. I think that relationship has a lot of value in it as well. The other car, the BMW, less so, I think. The wheel bearing thing. So it's like, pick your poisons, pick your demons, right? We can always say no to things. It's just Will saying yes to this item, bring me more money, solidify a relationship that I care about, or better me in any aspect, Right. And
Yeah.
that's generally the
Yeah,
policy.
I just think I just feel like I let myself down this week with how many other conversations I had and like other things I attended to, and also like I don't know why I felt a lack of direction, especially in the earlier part of the week. Like I felt like
I don't remember what we did in the earlier half of the week.
it was like before our meeting on Thursday, like that time period from like Monday to Thursday.
Didn't we podcast on a Tuesday?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
That's only one day.
So maybe that was it. Maybe it was like,
Yeah, and I also had extended hours at work this past week, so I was like only getting to like laptop work by 8 p.m. So maybe that was part of it too. I don't know. I just feel like kind of dead inside this week. I don't know why.
cool. So our main topic this week is on how to achieve goals that you never thought were possible. Sanders in a super positive mood, so this is going to be really motivational. But
Hey, it might be.
what I want to talk about, I'll bring the heat. I'll ask you tough questions and you can answer honestly as a member of the audience would. So the main theme is achieving goals you never thought were possible. And I want to talk about this because most people set their goals on what they think is achievable. So some examples are I want to graduate high school or I want to get a high paying job. And although life circumstances may make these more difficult for some people than others, I would say that these aren't really extraordinary feats of accomplishment. This isn't running the mile faster than any other human being. This isn't going to outer space. This is millions of people achieve these every day. So these aren't really like, complicated or overly difficult goals to hit. And so I want to start off by talking about why do people set their sights so low? Is there something that seeing success in the midterm, like within 5 years, is more alluring and more satisfying than a larger goal that's like 20 years out? What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think people are so short-sighted?
Yeah, I think people are a reflection of who they idolize. And I think by and large, people idolize their boss at work or what their parents did or the generic dream of having like a stable 9 to 5 with a medium income.
The American dream?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think the American dream is more than that, but
I think it's what it's devolved into.
Yeah. So I think that people idealize those things, and to achieve those things, I don't really think you need super high standards. And so I think that reflects down to what their goals are day to day. Additionally, I think that people find it a lot easier to complain about not achieving their dreams rather than changing themselves in the course of their lives in order to achieve those dreams effectively. And then people are discouraged by their community from pursuing something greater because the people around them aim to justify the risk that they didn't take by forcing others to follow the same path that they did. So I think between the influence of other people around you, between the people around an individual being at, a medium to low bar in terms of achievement, and then it being easier to complain about not reaching the top of the top rather than actually working to the top of the top, I think those three things combined is what leads people to have really short-term goals or short-sighted goals.
Yeah.
And it's important to have short-term and long-term goals, I think. You brought up the 5 years versus 20 years out kind of thing.
Right.
I think it's important to have an overarching like 20-year goal, and then have your smaller like 2, 3, 4 year goals within that.
Yeah.
Because it makes the success feel attainable or reachable, and it feels like you're taking steps each day to get towards it, versus like if you just had one big overarching 20-year goal at the end of the tunnel, you might not know if you're working towards it or not. It might not feel, attainable.
It's like breaking down the longer 20-year goal into sub-components, sub-goals.
Correct.
That there.
And I have a technique actually later on that I use to do that, and I've heard other people use to do that.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts?
I think you can break it down into 3 items. The first of which is their circumstance, which is akin to your you used a Hormozy quote. It was a buzzword Hormozy quote that I remember. It was blaming the circumstance. What was it?
People make you feel bad about the dreams to justify the risk that they didn't take.
Yeah, the circumstance, or they rely too heavily on the input of others. And then the third and final one is they lack faith in themselves. And I think that one is the real honest underlying tone to many people's issues, but the one that's the most difficult to get to. You can get over relying on the input of others because you can learn to not care about the input of people who aren't important. You can even get over your circumstance. There's a Hormozy quote that I really love, which is, it's like victims take 20 years to realize that even though it's someone else's fault, it's still their problem. And that is really powerful, especially when considering your circumstance. It's like, yeah, things suck and it's not entirely your fault. Dude, Derek fucking crushed it this week. Derek is a bartender at Pauhana, and he has been pouring our drinks like halfway filled. And I thought it was something personal. And so I've been intentionally not tipping. And one time he poured it a little bit higher, and I did tip that day. I asked him, I was like, hey, I don't have a tab. It's a free drink, but can I tip you? And he was like, sure. So I tipped him. And the next time I came back, he filled it. It was halfway up. And I was like, God damn it, we're back to it again. You know, I got a Pavlov dog. Teach him that tips mean fill the drink all the way up. But we spoke with another barback, Joel, about it. And he was like, dude, I don't think it's personal or anything. Like, you know, let me talk to him. And Derek came to me the other day and he was like, hey, dude, I'm so sorry. This isn't personal. I was trained to use the measuring cup and whatever. And I apologize for it. He took responsibility for it, even though circumstantially he was doing what he was told. But he recognized that even though this isn't 100% my fault, I'm going to take ownership of it and do something to make it right. So he apologized to me, filled my drink all the way up, and then offered to buy me a drink from his own tab, which I really, really appreciate. And I think that's an awesome real world right now example of people overcoming their circumstances just by taking ownership of it and doing it themselves. But the final one is, I think, a lack of faith in themselves, which I think subliminally is what I had growing up. And we'll get into that later. But generally speaking,
I agree with that. I have more on that later.
Good. Sander's going to shit talk me. Stick around. I think that a fear of failure will result in failure every single time. And so if you don't have faith in yourself, really what that speaks to is a fear of not doing well. Subliminally, that it can also connect to putting too heavy of a weight on the judgment of others, etc. But a fear of failure will result in failure every time. And then also on your circumstance, the must be nice quote from Hermosi is a fucking fantastic one. It's easier to blame your circumstances than it is to do something about it. That one's all too popular. I don't think I fall victim to that one super often, but as I write these out, I'm consistently thinking to myself, like,
I think I've only ever said it as like a sarcastic joke.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever like actually sat down and meant, oh man, must be nice. Like I've never sat down and actually felt that way. I've definitely seen people with like, you know, $2-3 million cars, and I'm like, must be nice.
Yeah.
You know, like
I think I've said it in passing, but it's never out of spite. I think that's what it is.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Right. And I think that the fear of failure will result in failure every time, and the fear stems from the judgment of others. But those people don't have the life you want. And as Hormozi says, if they don't have the life you want, don't listen to what they say. There's no greater waste of time than justifying your actions to people who have a life you don't want. Which is why I've stopped explaining the business thing to my fucking mom, because, dude, I must have talked her through it like 10 times now, and it's still like and you're not worried about not having a 401k, or you're not worried about not having a savings account. And I'm like, man, dude, I don't know how many times I can say this to you before I'm wasting my own time. But before we get into these main segments and really break down what goal setting is, I want to talk a little bit about what your personal goals are, specifically, in the set of Vision 79, because it's literally the name of our podcast. It's what we work toward every day. So I want to talk specifics about what do you envision when we say the words Vision 79?
In terms of like a brand or who I will become?
Not the podcast per se, but What is our Vision 79?
Becoming the greatest potential version of myself, having financial freedom, having the freedom to be able to do as I please without feeling as though I have to oblige or be controlled by external factors that I don't have influence over, to be more fit, to build businesses that help other people in my community and the people I love, to give back to the people I love. I think those are some heavy hitters for me.
That's about what I have written down. Financial freedom is at the top, which isn't fancy cars or mansions or anything like that. It's just literally I'm not worried about the number that's in my bank account. Because right now I wake up every morning and worry about the number that's in my bank account and how much cash I have hidden around this city. And then the second, I have racing as a high level. I would really like to drive as a gentleman driver when I get older, or maybe even own a racing team. I think that'd be cool. That's not a financial freedom thing. That's a I need money to do it thing. I'd also like to work with industry leaders. I think that it's so fascinating, especially, dude, this kid that we talked about in the introduction of the podcast. I would love to work with people like that, like specialists in their field who are way better at me than those items, but can fucking just absolutely crush it. They're just mercenaries. Those are the people who I want to work with, leading members of their field. I'd like to eradicate personal shortcomings, and I've since developed this since writing it into thinking, it's not that I want to become the perfect human being. I really think that's impossible, but I think that I want to reduce my regrets. So not necessarily regretting items that I didn't take or actions that I didn't take, but not regretting actions that I do take. So if I have the opportunity to go to the gym or go to a party, I don't care which I pick, so long as I do whichever one I do well. So if I go to the party balls, but don't get so hungover that you can't work the next day. If I go to the gym, crush it, but like don't fucking half-ass any of the lifts, you know? Like don't waste your time in whichever avenue you do. So I think that decreasing regrets is really what I mean when I say eradicating personal shortcomings. And I'd like to do all of this before I'm 40. So I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do in the second half of my life after I'm 40 because I plan on hitting all these by then. And I'd like to do it all through business. I don't want to do it through compound interest savings accounts or day trading or anything like that. I want to do it through business. It's not going to happen through the 9 to 5. I want to do it through building business. And I have a quote here, which is climb mountains not so the world can see you, but so you can see the world. And that really encompasses my meaning behind all of this, which is a lot of people seek fame and fortune to be perceived higher to other people. And that's never really resonated with me. I think I would be totally happy being the silent billionaire who no one knows about. Obviously, I don't think that'll happen if the podcast works out at all. But really, it's because it's not so that other people can see me in a higher light. If anything, if I become successful, if we become billionaires, we really wouldn't want people to see this in the stereotypical sense because this is when we were nobody and you don't want to be perceived as a nobody if fame is what your prerogative is. But this podcast is testament to the fact that that's not a priority to us. A priority to us is reaching the heights that we want to because we want to, not because we want other people to see us do it. And I think that seeking success for your own benefit is a really big distinction that many people miss out on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of people do things out of spite, or because they want to prove someone else wrong. And I think that anger can be a powerful motivator, but I don't think it's a forever flame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hormozi talks about, or maybe he doesn't. I thought I've heard him mention before running out of fuel. And like, if the fuel is whatever keeps you going in that moment. If it's discipline, if it's motivation, if it's anger, spite, whatever.
Yeah.
Use whatever fuel you have to get you where you need to go. And I really like that because some days I don't feel like I want to do it and I'm struggling with discipline that day. And if I'm angry that day, use that fuel to get you there. That's fine. But I don't think that it's a really efficient fuel source. I think it burns hot for a short period of time and you need to have the motivational and disciplinary structure in your life as well to get you where you need to go. You can't rely only on spite and only on anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eminem has a new song and his new album about it. It's cool. The premise is essentially like, what the fuck are you going to do if I don't run out of fuel? Like if I don't stop, what if I don't retire? What if I keep making music? What if I have all of these albums of diss tracks about you lined up so that even after I'm dead, I can continue to diss you? Like pretty slick shit like that. So like, you know, maybe Eminem is maybe he has enough childhood trauma that he can use that fuel, that spite to anger to fuel him throughout his entire career. And fucking like, God bless him, dude. Like power to him because I fucking love that music. But that's what I have regarding the issue that I want to discuss today. Do you have anything further before we get into breaking it down?
No, I'd love to break it down. I do have some more points, of course. But let's
like
break
as
it down.
We get through it or like right now?
I think they will come up as we get through it.
Okay, cool.
Let's hit it off.
Cool. So the way I want to break this down is first by defining what goals are, then talking about the pursuit of a goal, and then finally what the achievement of a goal should look like. So I want to break down goals into the process. I really want to operationalize it. Yep. So there are many misconceptions regarding goal setting, and most people never really give a second thought to it. There are millions of people who wake up every morning, go to their dead-end 9 to 5, and then spend the rest of their evening recharging for the next day with the idea that, well, I'm bound to get a promotion sometime is a goal. I want to make it very clear that that's not what a goal is. I'd like to dissect a goal into its core functions, operationalize it, and then share what we think goals should look like and why we feel our ideas are more likely to succeed than the standards that are out there today.
Yeah.
So I'd like to first define a goal by saying a goal is a measurable achievement that is to be accomplished in a set amount of time. So some examples, a shitty goal is I want to race cars. On its face, that sounds solid. If you ask a 7-year-old what he wants
want
to do,
fix the 914.
pretty much, yeah, that's a shitty goal. It's a nice sentiment and it's a good want, but it's not a goal. A mediocre goal is I want to race cars and win races. That's fine, but it's missing specifics. It's missing a timeline. It's missing how you're going to get there. Like a goal should have a little bit more structure to it. So a good goal in this context is I want to win a world championship with Ferrari before I'm 30. That's got a timeline. That's got way more specifics to it. Like it sounds more motivating even just hearing it. So I think that when you're writing your goal, if you wouldn't feel confident saying it with your chest to a group of kids and have them go, oh my God, he's going to do it, then it's not a good enough goal. It's got to have more specifics in there.
Yeah.
How do you define goals?
I think you hit it off pretty well. It has to be specific. I'll add this because you went over a lot of the great structure about it. You have to have genuine belief in the goal. Like it can't, and I go into this a little bit later, but I think the vernacular of which you choose to portray your goal is super important. It's not like I want to, or I should, or I will, right? It's I have to, I need to, I must, right? I think the vernacular is really important because recently I've put more emphasis on, at least in my personal life and in my business life, I guess, using vernacular that reflects who I want to become or where I want to go more effectively. Like the vernacular reflects that path more effectively. And I think that's really important because the words you choose are really powerful and they have a psychological impact on how you think and feel every day. And so I think I'm going to rephrase that. If you choose words that reflect a weak person with a weak goal and a weak mentality, then you will become that person. If you choose words that are strong and that reflect the person you want to become, then you will inherently work towards that person.
Have you heard about the study that recorded the verbalization of feeling compared to the release of chemicals in the brain?
No, that sounds really interesting though.
There's a study, I don't have any of the specifics, but I promise I have heard about this somewhere. I'm not speaking totally out of my ass. But there was a study that scientists did on regular everyday people going to their 9-to-5s. And they hooked up like an EKG or something to their brain. I have no fucking idea how they did it. But when they went into work, they were like, hey, we're going to give you 6 hours of sleep. So not much sleep at all. And then we're going to have you go into work. And, make sure that your coworkers know that you're tired. So when they went to work, everyone would be like, how you doing? And they'd be like, oh, fuck, bro. Like, I didn't sleep well last night. I'm doing this study thing for my brain. And like, I'm feeling exhausted, right? And upon saying that, the brain released more sleepy chemicals. And then they had another control group, or I guess it's not a control group, another group of people go in. They were like, listen, we're going to give you 6 whole hours of sleep. So you're going to be well rested and go in and let everyone know that you're chipper. At the end of the day, your boss is going to give you a promotion or something like that. So they went in, and when everyone asked them, how you doing? They were like, dude, I'm doing fantastic. They would go out and ask people how they are, whatever. And their brain released more dopamine and more excited and awake chemicals. So like literally the words that you speak, your brain listens to whether you know it or not. So I used to do this when I would have really shitty days, like when I was bummed out, when I was depressed. I would make myself smile in the mirror and I would look at myself smiling and I would know there's nothing behind those eyes. You're dead inside. But I would see the smile and I would go, all right. And I would go on through my day and I would intentionally smile at people. And like checking out at the grocery store, I would like thank the clerk. I'd be like, thanks, have a great one or something like that. And like, I fucking hate doing this. I'm doing it right now. I fucking hate the fake smiling and I just test it. But I feel happier throughout the day as I do it because my brain is literally getting happy signals from my face muscles. And your muscles can send signals to your brain the same way your brain does to your muscles.
Yeah. I've done that before too. Like when I have a bad day, try to smile through it.
Yeah. Scientifically,
I don't always do it, but
scientifically it helps.
Yeah.
So similarly, when setting goals, if you set your goal with a compulsion, like I need to, or I must, or I'm going to, like I'm making it to competition in regard to Formula SAE, I mean, like, we really did. We hit the gas on that fucking team for nonstop 8 months. And there's nothing, I don't think that there's anything more I could have done to get that team to competition. But if we
Yeah, I
hadn't-
mean, at the end of the day, even if the car was fully complete, we didn't even have enough dedicated people.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, like, but imagine we go through that entire year and the whole time we're like, we might make it. We're not sure. Different flavor.
At the same time, I guess you could say you could reflect the problem back on yourself and be like, well, maybe we didn't motivate them enough. But
I don't know. I think that
2 hours of sleep for 8 months, doing everything that we can, was probably about as close as you can get to doing everything we can to motivate those people.
I think that if we were given the opportunity to do the same exact project today, it would have gone differently. But because of the lessons we'd learned from then, so like immediately I would have gone to the professor and been like, "Give me new team members. I know the problems because I've experienced them now."
Yeah.
So you learn lessons with each experience, but regardless of success, like regardless of whether or not you make it to competition, similar to the racing that we talked about, like how many corners could you have gone another 3 centimeters through? Right? Like how much more grip could you have?
Yeah, I talked about last week that one corner on that track record I got where I was like, I could have gone a little quicker.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
Right. Could you imagine, like, if we had even one of those in regard to SAE, then we would be speaking about it differently today. But the entire year, everyone we talked to, they'd go, "Do you really think you're going to make it?" And we're like, 100%, there's no doubt in my mind. And like, even some people who didn't know about the competition or like had a little bit of an inkling of an idea, like they've heard rumors that we're not going to make it, they were like, "Oh shit, okay, I guess they are."
Yeah, yeah. Have you heard the analogy of the angel of history?
No?
This is something I think about a lot. When reflecting back on the past or trying to learn from lessons that I've experienced before, is the angel of history is all-knowing and all-seeing, but it looks back in time as it walks backwards into the future, right?
Interesting.
I think that's a really cool analogy. It's like, someone walking backwards into the future, but they can see everything that's behind them with crystal clear eyes. That's like the angel of history.
That's how you row boats.
Yeah,
I can see.
True, actually, quite literally.
So when you're rowing, one of the things that you're trying to optimize is what we call run, which is if I take a stroke, how much distance is the boat covering before I take my next stroke? Because every time you put the blade in the water, let's think about physics here, the blade is pushing back on the water and stopping the boat in the water until you apply pressure. Yeah. So every single stroke that you take, the boat stops for a brief moment. It's called check. You're checking the boat when you stop it in the water like that. So you want to optimize what's the most power I can get per stroke, but it's not just power. There's a lot of technique in it too. So run is the distance between strokes. And the way you can tell is that when you take a stroke, when you put your blade in the water and drive it through, think physics, you're not ripping the blade through the water, you're pushing the boat through the water. So the blade really stays in the same point in the water, right?
Yeah.
So from the water's perspective, the blade goes in and then it goes like whoop, like that. So you leave a puddle exactly where the blade was in the water, and that puddle ripples for several moments after you left, right? So when you take a stroke, you can see where that puddle is in relation to your boat before you take the next stroke. And generally speaking, if you're clearing your puddles, the sternmost point of the boat is past your previous puddle before you take your next stroke. And generally speaking, that's good if you're clearing your puddles.
Got it. So is there any, in an 8, right, in an 8, is there any interference between the front person's puddle and the rearward person's stroke?
Sometimes.
Is there interference in the water, and does that affect the way the boat feels or moves?
Sometimes, because it's turbulent flow, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, if another boat drifts into your lane, actually, this was a racing strategy that we would do when we weren't in official races, but just practicing, is if you're racing side by side, but you get far enough ahead of somebody that you can kind of cross over a little bit, you can put that boat or that boat's oars in your puddle, which is going to disturb the set or balance of their boat and fuck with them. But let's say you have really poor run and the stroke seat's oars are hitting the puddles of 2-seat in the bow, right? That's going to upset how efficient his strokes are. But generally speaking, a coach will tell you what kind of meters per stroke you're getting. But a rower can tell just by looking at where their puddles are in relation to the stern of the boat. They can tell if they're clearing their puddles or not, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know what's ahead of you.
I heard this story. I watched this random documentary. I don't know why it had this part in it. But anyways, I heard this story about a girl who wanted to become a professional golfer. She lived, I think, in the Philippines.
Her name was Ryan Monty.
That would be funny. No.
Okay.
She lived in the Philippines, And the golf courses in the Philippines were like really rough, like rained on all the time. The turf was really bad, a lot of puddles and muddy grass and stuff like that, whatever. And she was really, really good, really good. And so she got offered to train in the United States. And so she flew over to the United States and trained for 4 months. And then she had a tournament back home after those 4 months to plan. And traditionally, she was winning these tournaments left and right. But this next one was a big deal because there were other people going to watch her, like, you know, sponsors, stuff like that. She came back and she swung like 20 strokes more than she'd ever swung because the turf in the U.S. was perfect. It was like smoothed over. It was nice. No puddles, no mud, anything like that. So she'd been practicing on this perfect turf. And when she went back to her home, you know, course, it screwed her up so bad that she couldn't play on like the shitty turf anymore.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. I forgot how that, I guess that connected to your crew rowing, you know, crew story.
Directly. Because
yeah,
as a Florida team, we race in 175% humidity.
Yeah.
When it's storming, I've rowed in hurricanes before. In crazy chop because we row on rivers, in currents. I've rowed at the beach before, like in the ocean.
Have you ever had a gator with an oar?
Yes, we've
Really?
had snakes in boats before.
Really?
Canal 54 in Fellsmere, we would hit gators with oars. One time a snake slithered up on the stern and then got into the boat, and one kid, he grabbed it and fucking flung it. It was crazy. But yeah, dude, all kinds of stuff. We would hit manatees, and when bull manatees are disturbed, they flip their tails up like really crazy heavy. We've had boats break before.
Whoa.
We had, dude, Elizabeth actually was coxing a 4. It was a really misty morning, so you couldn't see everything. But they were doing a piece, and they hit a manatee, and the manatee kicked directly under one of these kids' seats. He was a little Greek guy. He was a lightweight Greek rower, and he shrieked and jumped straight up out of the boat when it happened. And I remember it was misty, but I could see him pop up crystal clear, and that cracked the hull, and I had to bring the boat back in.
Whoa.
But the point being, like, rowing in Florida it can be really rough. Not every day. Some days it's glass. I've got beautiful videos of me rowing on glass. We call it breaking glass when it's like that, when it's super flat and you're chopping it up.
Yeah.
But it's rough.
That's how the Charles usually is.
Yeah, sometimes.
It's pretty glassy. Usually.
Yeah.
Not always, of course.
But that's the thing. A lot of northern places are inland rivers or lakes where it's almost always glassy. And so if you have rough weather out there, usually, since it's also freezing, they'll just stay in and they'll do land training during rougher conditions.
Yeah.
Down here, we can train in rough conditions all the time because it's warm enough. We're not going to freeze out there. It just sucks. But whenever people would come down from the north to row against us, if there was even a little bit of rough conditions out there, like, we immediately knew we're going to win this race because the northerners aren't used to this.
Yeah.
And so similarly, like golfing in the Philippines, it's like, you know, if you have it rough, you're really forced to become much better at it. But if you become so good that you elevate to like easier, like Rocky 3 was about this actually, because Rocky would train in his apartment against like a mattress and got really good, and then he got like all this fame and accreditation and fancy gyms and stuff, and he lost it, like he lost his touch. But yeah, how the fuck did we get on this? What are we talking about?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We were talking about goals. We defined a goal.
Yeah.
Probably going to operationalization next.
Yeah. I want to talk about why setting a timeline is important. Because I want to live my life to the fullest. And there's no time, having no time measurement is a sure way to result in a life being wasted or feel like it's flown by. Like, if you don't have a timeline set on your goal, you're kind of just free floating. So like, if I say to you right now, I'm like, oh yeah, man, like I want to become the vice president of Northrop Grumman, right? Maybe I hit it one day. Maybe I hit it when I'm in my 50s or 60s. But by then it's like, oh, like, tell me about your journey to become vice president. And you're like, I kind of like floated between jobs, and like I moved reserved parking cones around the parking lot so that I could have a shorter walk into the office. And I kind of wound up here because the system just carried me. That's not... Like, you don't have a fucking story there, right?
Right.
But like right now, if I ask you about our business venture and like, hey, like, you know, when you graduated college and started business, what happened? Like, we have discernible moments with specific goals that we've hit and then graduated from to speak about. And I'm really terrified of my life flying by because so far I have so many moments and so many stories and so many achieved goals behind me that I can call upon. But I feel that, and I fear that many people our age don't have any going forward and are going to waste the next 25 years of their life.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think that we work more than the general populace does, like on our dreams and our goals. But I still often feel as though I am behind.
Yeah.
Like very frequently. And I haven't figured out whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I think it's a good thing in the sense that it generates the pressure I need to continue pushing. But when you constantly feel like you're behind, you can't really use the small successes along the way as effective motivation to keep you going.
I don't think it should be. So like right now, like the whole last episode, we reflected on our successes from racing and rowing, right? But dude, I haven't been on the water in almost a year. So like, what the fuck is like, none of that motivates me to continue with business every day. But it's not a life wasted because I can look back on specific goals that I had at one point and whether or not I achieved them. FSAE, a goal that we didn't hit, but learned a lot of lessons from. My entire rowing career, goals I set and many of them I achieved. And if we didn't have goals for either, like if we kind of just took FSAE, like most of the members on our team, where it's just another project, they're not going to remember any of that. They're not going to take any lessons out of it. But I feel that feeling like you're behind is a good thing because it means there's a goal ahead of you. If you don't feel like you're behind, then you're not moving anywhere and grow or die. Right?
Yeah. But do you think it's important to always feel behind? Like my point is that I feel as though I am always behind. And then I have a hard time, or sometimes have a hard time taking the small rewards along the way to show myself and prove to myself that I can do this and I can continue pushing and I can motivate myself and get to the point I want to be.
I think that feeling behind is a good thing and getting stressed about it is a bad thing. Because if you don't feel behind, you have no spark to continue pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are stressed about it, then you're going to perform less efficiently.
Yeah.
So, dude, they're one of the greatest Formula One races of all time happened this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
Good?
It was in Azerbaijan. Charles Leclerc started from pole for Ferrari, and Oscar Piastri's in second. This is the weekend that McLaren were like, we're going to back Lando Norris for the championship, and Lando's in 15th starting. And the first 20 laps, Charles Leclerc is in the lead. Oscar's like within DRS, like a second behind him, but like can't get super close. And then on lap 20, like all of a sudden from like 7 car lengths back, Oscar Piastri just fucking threw it up the inside to turn 1. Leclerc was totally shocked, and Oscar got position on him. And Oscar was arguably not in the faster car. And so Leclerc, by the end, like the number 1 overtaking point at the end of the longest straight in Formula One history, Charles Leclerc, his fucking front wing would be on Oscar Piastri's rear wing going into turn 1 every single lap for the rest of the race until his tires fell off like 3 laps to go and Oscar was able to pull a gap. But like every single lap, Leclerc was on top of him. And Oscar
Why didn't he go for a pass?
He did a couple times. He tried, but when Oscar saw that happening, he took just a little bit of the inside line to make Charles Leclerc go around the outside, and Oscar had enough speed to carry it through. So Leclerc knew that if he didn't have like a crazy exit, or if Oscar didn't have a bad exit, then he wouldn't be able to make it stick. And like the entire race, it was like right there. But Oscar, for the first half of the race, knew that he was behind and knew that he needed to get ahead, because if he waited too long, then his tires would drop off and he wouldn't be able to get ahead of Leclerc.
Yeah.
So he felt that same I'm behind pressure, but didn't succumb to the stress. He had no lockups. He didn't put a foot wrong. He didn't touch the wall. Like, it was a flawless race from Oscar because he felt behind but didn't feel the pressure. So I think that definitizing between the two is important. And I think it's important to feel behind, because if you don't, you and I know somebody who is comfortable, satiated, right? And they don't feel behind and they're not moving anywhere.
Yeah.
And to your point about us working all the time, I had a conversation with somebody the other day and they were like, oh, I'm going to buy this thing that we've been talking about. And I was like, that's awesome, dude. I'm excited for you. And he was like, yeah, man, I need to spend some money. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you need to spend money? Like, is this a tax thing or what's the deal? And he was like, no, I just like, if I don't spend money, I'm not happy. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, like we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So now that I have some money, I want to spend it and like make the most of it. I was like, I can kind of relate to that. I feel like that when I'm working. He was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you you're only happy when you spend money, and I'm only really happy when I'm working on something. Like, not physically working like pen to paper, but like if I'm progressing toward a goal, then I feel happy. But if I don't have a goal to progress towards, I get existential, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I fall off.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, yeah. And then like walked away. And I was like, all right, like we're wired a little bit differently, and I understand that, but I think it's for the best, because I would so much rather have the problem that I have right now, where if I'm not working on something, I panic, than I need to spend money to feel happy.
Yeah.
You know?
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be too bothered by the feeling behind aspect. It's the stress that's the killer. But I think that the reason that I don't want to waste my life or feel like it's flying by is because I want to dream big and I want to actually reach it. So if my goal is to be a billionaire, I can do that by or if I want to be a millionaire, I can do that by investing in a compound interest savings account or my 401k, but that doesn't really effectively meet my dream. So like my relatives are millionaires because they put money in the S&P 500 in 1985, and now it's worth $1 million technically. But like $1 million doesn't go the same distance today as it did 35 years ago. And that really isn't as effective anymore. I don't want to be a millionaire in the sense like I want X amount of money. I want to be a millionaire in the sense that I don't have to worry about money anymore, and I get to do things that I love every day. Yeah. And I feel like if you don't have a specific goal, it's not as likely to happen. And even if it does, it's not in the same sense. Similarly, if I just handed you $1 million today, now you're a millionaire. Congrats. Like winning the lottery. If you win the lottery, I don't play the lottery, right? Because if I win it, I haven't achieved a goal. I haven't earned it. Someone handed it to me. And where's the satisfaction in that? Right? It hasn't been earned. Hasn't been fought for.
I hear that.
Hermosi says you've already achieved goals you said would make you happy. Right? So I think that's a surefire sign that you've set your goal too short.
Or one of the goals
too short. Right, exactly.
Right. Like there can be smaller goals within the big goal.
Yeah, exactly. You can't tell yourself, if I get a job in engineering, I'll be happy, because that's less than 5 years away. You can't tell yourself, if I buy a house, that'll make me happy. It's less than 5 years away. If you tell yourself, let's pick like a midterm goal, like a 10-year goal. I want to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Right. If you achieve that within 10 years, you can say, this is going to put me one step towards happiness. I'm sure it will. If you pick a 25-year goal, I want to build a business that employs over 2,000 employees, right? By the time you get there, you'll have achieved so much else that it almost certainly will make you happy, if not one step closer to that. But I feel that Hermosi's point in saying you've already achieved goals you said would make you happy, I had previously misconstrued into thinking you're just always going to be unhappy. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a problem with goal setting. I think you're setting your sights too small. Because I think at a certain point, if you hit every single one of your goals, I think chances are I'll probably be happy. And if not happy 100% of the time, happy 95% of the time, right? If I wake up getting blown by 7 women in my, Beverly Hills mansion, and I take my Ferrari to work, where I get to work on a business with you to bleed out the last 5% efficiency to get our racing team to the top, fucking whatever. Like, if that's the dream, I don't see a reason why I can be unhappy. I feel like a lot of people aren't happy because they have so little they haven't achieved anything, or they've achieved everything and they have no more goals. And both is a problem with goal setting, not with success.
Yeah. After you frame it that way, I think I agree with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's an interesting framing to say that it's not an issue of, the actual things you're achieving, but like the short-sightedness of them.
I think so. And I think that the same is reversed. So if I set a goal of, I want to buy McDonald's for you and Joel while we work on his car tonight, it's probably not going to make me happy because I can do that really easily and really quickly. Like, that's not going to make me happy existentially as a person. Similarly, if my goal is to own a jet ski and a mansion and have 5 wives, and eventually I get there, I'll be unhappy. I'll be the rich, lonely guy who's unhappy because I don't have goals anymore, because I've met them all. I think, we'll get to this when it comes to the achieving a goal section, but ultimately having a goal is what allows you to be happy, not having achieved them. But to finalize, I want to talk about myself specifically, because I had really poor definition of goals up until recently. Here's a series of them. My goal in high school was to get into college. And then my goal after that was to graduate with a degree in engineering. And then my goal after that was to get a job in engineering. Spoiler alert, I'm still unhappy, and I hit all of those so-called goals. Even though they were specifics and they had a time set, etc., they were very short-term goals. And I feel that myself, like many other people, have gotten there and are disappointed. It's not everything it was cracked up to be because I don't have another goal. So after I got my job in engineering, I decided to set another goal, which is to start a business. And that one is way more difficult than fucking getting a degree in engineering. So now I have something to work towards. Now I'm happy again because I'm working towards something, and starting a business is difficult. It's taking time.
What do you say to people who have these short-term goals that they continue to achieve, and I think I know your answer, but just to clarify for the audience too. But what do you say to people that set short-term goals so then they continue to achieve and then they don't feel happy because they're just these little short-term goals, and so they decide that life isn't about setting goals for these big dreams. It's about enjoying the moment that you have right now. Like I would say, well, like you now with your perspective, I would say, well, your goals were too short. You should have set bigger goals. But then, their perspective on goal setting is, well, I set these goals and I thought they were big goals at the time, but then I achieved them and they didn't make me happy. So I've come to the personal conclusion that goals don't really make me happy. It's living in the moment that makes me happy. What do you say to those people? How would you guide someone in that frame of mind?
I think there are definitely people out there like that. And I am of the opinion that my brain wiring is genuinely different. I'm that guy. I'm different than other people. I'm built different, right? That deal. I genuinely think that I do think differently, and that my brain gives me dopamine hits for things that are not standard. So I believe that there genuinely are people out there who derive the most joy from living in the moment. My fear in succumbing to that, because I used to be similar to that. I used to growing up, my goal growing up, what I wanted to be, I wanted to move to the Australian zoo that Steve Irwin had set up in his name and be a conservationist. And I was like, I don't care if I live in a mud hut with 15 other people and shower once a week. I want to save the animals.
That's wild coming from the person who threw batteries into the air.
I really wanted to do this growing up. And the goal of that would be the Forrest Galante level of live in the moment and enjoy the jungle and Mother Nature for what it is.
Right.
And that's all fine. If that's what makes you happy, go for it. It doesn't make me happy because I feel that every moment I'm there, similar to going to college and getting a job, it's that at some point I won't be able to do it anymore. And at some point I'll want for something and not be able to get it. At some point I'm going to have financial difficulties and I won't be able to handle them because I won't have built the skill set or the system to solve that issue for me. So I feel that financial freedom is more motivating to me than the joy of living in a moment, because I feel that you can pick the moment that you live in. So I can pick to enjoy the moment of me walking downstairs to my car, just the same as the moment of me, jumping on top of an alligator at the zoo for Steve Irwin. Like I can pick my moment, right? The difference is the moments that I want to enjoy, I want to be more personally significant, and that requires more financial support, right? So there's a difference between, I've caught alligators and snakes before. I did the wildlife stuff with Dutchie growing up. So like I've had a taste of that, and I've also ridden a race car, and that's way more fun to me. So that I think that my standard of moments is just much higher than most people.
Yeah. I mean, anyone can reframe anything into something that makes them happy or something that they can enjoy, right? For example, if I heard this analogy on a Modern Wisdom podcast, but it was in regards to a TED Talk with someone else. And they said, if you are standing and looking outside a window alone and it's raining outside and you're just standing looking out the window, then you're just depressed and sad, right? But if you have a cigar in your mouth, then you're a fucking philosopher.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like even if you just were looking out that window with a cigar, sad and depressed, like you can reframe that as, oh, I'm sad and depressed, or I'm a philosopher thinking about the power of life and, you know, what is the meaning of all of this around us.
Yep,
right?
that's exactly correct. I think you should have just cut me off immediately and answered it because you had that lined up. But
Yeah, I didn't. I thought of it while you were talking.
That's Rory Sutherland, and
yes, thank you.
Chris Williamson said that's the only time he's heard someone swear in a TED Talk.
Yep. That too.
But that's a really great way of saying it. And I feel that, I mean, I grew up rowing, walking from friend's house to friend's house on the beach, bumming it up. We had like fucking no money to put together, so we would do car washes to make money to go like buy dinner and hang out together and fix each other's mopeds and bikes and shit. And I cherish a lot of those memories, even though we didn't have anything. But I don't want to live that life forever because I'm not progressing. I would like to be fixing my friends' bikes and mopeds, and then I want to fix your Miata, and then I want to fix your 914, and then I want to fix my McLaren, and then so on and so forth. Like I want to scale, because if I live the same moment every day, it loses its specialty. Maybe that's what it is I can't live, if I'm not progressing, then I'm reliving the same moment every day. And if it's special the first time, awesome, but it won't be the 5,000th time.
Yeah.
So I need to change my moments.
It's a very interesting way of looking at it. I appreciate that. Very cool.
The last point that I have on defining a goal before pursuing the goal is actually one where I shit on someone else for their goals. Because when we graduated college, or we're getting close to it, I remember we were in the car coming back from the track, and I was like, so I'm driving, and I'm like, so where are you going to interview? Like, where are you going to apply for an engineering job? And you were like,
this was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm not doing that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And you're like, I don't want to be an engineer. And I was like, did you know that you're paying $250,000 to get a degree in engineering? And you were like, yeah, but like, I just think engineering is cool. So it's kind of like a hobby, like it's a skill that I want to learn. And I was like, you're not going to take a job anywhere? And you're like, no, I'm going to keep working at the mechanic shop, and then I'm going to become a day trader. And I was like, oh, you're retarded. All right. I thought we were going to be really good friends, but it turns out you're a fucking idiot. And you're like, no, some of the people who I mentor from make like $1 million a year. And I was like, what? And like, so I slowed the car down, and I was like, $1 million a year? What are you talking about? Just sitting at your computer? And you were like, yeah, they timed it, whatever. And you explained it to me. And I was like, huh, okay. I initially shit on this idea because you're wasting money, in air quotes, getting an engineering degree, because you're not going to use the skills that you're paying for. And then you're going to do a risk-based job that you know nothing about to make mediocre pay. And then I immediately was humbled by the fact that, no, that actually has a lot of potential if you learn and like get good at it. And although I've since informed myself and developed that day trading just isn't for me, the way I phrase it now is day trading just isn't for me, not you're retarded for going for it.
Or day trading doesn't work.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Instead of making an ignorant claim on something that I'm not informed about, I instead will inquire and then make a decision based on my preference.
Yeah.
And not judge other people. So a great example is I feel like I can make more money in business and engineering than in day trading, so that's what I'm going to do. Not discouraging anybody else from doing day trading, because if that's what scratches your itch, go for it. That's why I don't shit on Justin for doing his stock trading, because it makes him happy and maybe it makes him money. It's just not for me, and that's okay.
You know what the funniest thing about going to get engineering degrees and then going into business?
What?
Is that I think we are actually going to more effectively use the true skills that we learned in engineering. We're going to use them more than even the people who are going into engineering fields.
I think so.
Because genuinely, I think the core skills that you learn in engineering is how to be analytical, how to analyze problems, and how to find solutions, right? All this math stuff and this physics stuff and, fluid equations and blah, 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 blah. Like, you forget all of that relatively quickly, and then you relearn it from your job. And you're like, yeah, you have sort of a foundation, but a lot of it just goes down the drain, right? But it's funny because what you don't use in a standard 9 to 5 is a lot of that critical thinking or like challenging problem solving or analytical. How do I come up with a unique solution to this and make it work? Right. But that's like the real core of engineering that you don't see in a 9 to 5, but you do see elsewhere.
It's funny. I was writing up my Workday profile this past week because, did I talk to you about the drop list already? Do you know what that is? As a contract ends, so like let's say you're doing Artemis stuff, right? After the Artemis launches and that contract is over, government funding is gone because you're not building the Artemis rocket anymore, right? What happens to your job? It goes away. You have to go work on whatever, Apollo, whatever the next thing is, right? So right now at work, this isn't happening to me, but this is happening to other people at Northrop Grumman. Contracts are ending, so jobs are drying up. When that happens, they put your name on what's called the drop list, which is either we need to find a new home for you on a new program or you're fired, like let go, right? And although my jobs are not, that nothing's happening that way in my job, I've had a lot of people in the field tell me that I need to fill this out. So in filling it out, they have goddamn it, I'm hiccuping and burping. They have this section where it's like, write a brief statement about yourself, couple sentences. So I wrote like 10 paragraphs. And one of the paragraphs is on personal philosophy regarding engineering. And I wrote, a common misconception is that engineering is a skill set, but it's not. Engineering is a mindset. Because engineering isn't a discernible skill. It's not like racing where it's like, I'm going to give inputs from my hands and feet based upon, or I'm going to give outputs from my hands and feet based on inputs from my eyes and ass, right? It's a way of thinking. And that's really interesting that you say that, because I feel as though initially I was spiteful toward our degree in engineering. I feel that it's given me the mindset that allows me to be more efficient in business.
Yeah, I think it's given a lot more to us than most people would recognize.
Yeah.
And I think there's potential for it to give a lot of people the same ideas and abilities that we have is there.
Yeah.
Right? The potential is there, but a lot of people just don't take that with them and use it. They take the, fluid mechanics skills or the math solving skills or whatever. And I think that's a loss.
Yeah. Do you know what engineering has done specifically for us in business?
I mean, quite a few things.
It's taught us how to effectively execute.
Yeah.
And how to pursue a goal, which is our second segment. That's flawless transition right there.
Yes, it is.
Pursuing your goal. Once you have one defined, how do you pursue it? I feel like people get lost here very frequently. Say I set a goal at Northrop Grumman to get a promotion by the end of the year. Great. Now what? Let's break it down into discernible steps. Can I work longer hours? Can I ask everyone on my team individually if they need help? Can I speak to management and ask them specifically what goals I need to hit in order to get that promotion? So many people will set a goal that they're bound to hit eventually, regardless of input. I want to become a better boyfriend, or I want to get a promotion, or I want to eat better. I see people set these goals all the time, but never actually execute them. And I've come up with a new thought, which is this is New Year's resolution syndrome, which is actually really good goal setting, but fucking abysmal goal execution. And I actually want you to talk about Russian New Year's for a second, because this was a new concept to me when I met you, and I want you to share with a lot of people.
Yeah, so
both of the people watching, you and me, at work on Monday.
So for Russian New Year's tradition, my mom's side is Russian, and everyone in Russia, as a tradition, the first day of the new year, January 1st, your day, that day, is a reflection of how your year will go. So traditionally speaking, you want to do things that will reflect how you want your year to go. For example, I go racing every year on January 1st because I want to maintain my skills in the coming year. I want to continue to be fast and improve. And I find that racing has taught me a lot of core things that I carry through me every single day. And so I want to reflect back on that and maintain those values for the coming year. Additionally, I try to do a little bit of laptop work. I always do a little bit of laptop work. I don't try to do it. I always do a little bit of laptop work at the end of the day because I think that working towards personal goals and development is really important to me. And I try to keep an uplifting smile on my face, and I feel positive, and I enjoy my time, and I enjoy the people around me, and I have a nice, solid, productive day. That's
the reason I like that is because most people set year-long goals on New Year's Day, but you set a one-day goal the day before New Year's Day, which is I'm going to do XYZ tasks tomorrow to set a precedent for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So your New Year's resolution can be completed in 24 hours and often is.
Yeah.
And I really love that because most people set an audacious goal that they'll never hit on the day, and you set very attainable short-term goals that you hit on the day.
Yeah. That's the power of, I guess, breaking your big goals down into small chunks.
I think
it's
so.
a reflection of that concept.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think that in doing so, if you're able to hit your goals on the first day of the year, you're more likely to hit the goals that you have set out for the rest of the year. And so I want to speak to specifics about if you were to set a goal on the first day of a year, how do you hold yourself accountable to get that goal completed by the end of the year? Because it's really common for people to set that goal. Dude, I can't tell you how many years I've set the goal, this is the year I'm going to get abs. And then that disappears within a month and a half, right? Because it's fucking difficult and I'm a bitch. But how do you stick to these goals? And did you have any specific ones from this year? I can't remember what our goals were. We should have started a podcast earlier.
This year?
Yeah.
I think my main goal this year was to grow my business with you, to continue business development and personal growth, to strengthen my character as who I am, to be stronger with who I am as an individual, and to be steadfast in my beliefs. And I think that overarching, I think that's what I was thinking at the beginning of this year.
Interesting.
And I say that because I can't remember exactly what my goals were at the start of the year, but I have made active progress towards all those things this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume that that's what I set out for myself at the start of the year, because this year I've had a particular focus on those things.
Interesting.
And I think that kind of reflects back to the idea that I have bigger goals that I then try to chunk down into smaller things that I can achieve from day to day or week to week. Mm-hmm. And, the one point I think I struggle with still a little bit is I have like an off week where I just feel like dead inside. And then that dead week tries to reset me back to like, oh, you suck, you've not made any progress, blah, 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 right? In my own head. And that's something that I still struggle with, but I've shown myself that I can come back from that and achieve what I want to achieve enough times to where it doesn't set me back to zero. It's just like one small step back that I then know I can get back on track to.
Right. That's interesting because right now, empirically on paper, I think that you can probably say, based on income, we have made no progress because my income is exactly the same today as it was at the start of the year. And I think that is part of the lonely chapter that Hormozy and Chris Williamson talk about, because it's the chapter where you've realized that you are living in the matrix and you want out. So all your friends that you went drinking with in college stop talking to you, but you're not successful yet. So you haven't made friends in industry, and you're working your ass off and you're giving a lot of input and there's next to no output because you're not actually making any money yet. And it's just the period of suck. It's the Rocky montage.
And that's, I think, at the core of why I had a bad week this week. But what I was telling you earlier, maybe on or off camera, I don't remember. But like at the start of this week, I just felt kind of lost.
Mm-hmm.
I felt as though this week I kind of fell into the traps that I used to fall into in like chatting it up with other people or playing a game of pool or answering this guy's question about blah, 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 or like going over to do this thing. And I'm like, hold on, like I worked really hard to push that mindset and that shit out of my life. And then I'm welcoming it back so easily because it is so easy to welcome back. Like it's so easy to respond to a text. And then if they text you back about something else, so easy to respond to that, right? And I think that actually gets at part of the reason why we started our podcast by talking about the kind of the preface of achieving goals you never thought were possible and talking about why people's sights are so low. I think that actually contributes to that effect because people have these goals that they set out to do, but it is so easy to just acclimate to who you were before or the people around you, right? And so I think that's part of the reason why I was a little bit discouraged this week was I saw a little bit of that in myself and I don't want to go back to that. So now that I recognize that and talking through it here as well, I'm going to make an active conscious effort to redivert.
In our last podcast, we talked about a golden hour rowing piece, which is where you take every single stroke at the same exact power, at the same exact rating. And the hardest part of that piece isn't the beginning or the middle or the end. It's the same with every rowing piece. We call it the wall, because at a certain point you hit a physical limit where you so badly don't want to take the next stroke because it hurts so bad that you want to stop. And what's funny about rowing is when you're in the boat, you don't have a choice. You can take a stroke off, which is what we call it, which is essentially where you put your blade in the water and then you move your legs really quick, but you like move your back and arms really slowly, and like you move your blade through the water really slowly, so you're not actually applying force. And visually, you can only tell when people are taking off strokes if you are seasoned, right? If you don't know what you're looking at, it just looks like rowing. But if you know what you're looking at, you know when people are taking off strokes. But that's the thing is, I can take an off stroke and maybe nobody in my boat will notice, but I'll know. And in the golden hour, it's really difficult for me, it's like the 70% mark. When I'm 70% of the way through a piece and everything is screaming and everything is on fire, but I've gotten every stroke up until now perfect, I want so badly to just take one off stroke, just one off stroke so that the glucose in my legs breaks down and I hurt just a little bit less for the stroke after that. I just want a little bit more energy for the last couple strokes, but I've already nailed everything, single stroke up until now. It's so easy after having done 70% of the work through the piece to take one stroke off, but that ruins the entire piece.
Yeah.
And so sticking with it and doing every stroke the exact same for the last 30%, even though you're most of the way there, it's just another 30%. That 30% feels longer than the 70% before it. And I think that with a lot of people going through the lonely chapter, I'm sure there are tons of people who have done exactly what we've did. They've graduated college, they wanted to start a business, they started to learn, they started a podcast, they got an investor, they started writing a business plan out, and then they just took a stroke off and they just slipped back.
Yeah.
And now they're working at their 9-to-5 still. They had a business once and they've given up on it. I work with people like that. There are a couple of people I work with who are like, oh yeah, I had a business when I was younger. Like, I understand. And I'm like, you don't. Like, I'm not giving up on it. I'm not stopping. But it's really easy to take a stroke off and to slide back out of all the work that we've done. But what I will say is that even if you have like 4 weeks like this in a row, I'm not going to let you fall all the way out of it. I'll keep you in check and make sure that it doesn't stay that way. Not that I feel like I have to get involved at all. I think you have a handle on it, but do you see what I mean? Like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And regardless of how we feel about not making progress, I think that this is testament, this is proof that we've hit the personal growth goals. And I think that all the documentation that we've put together for our business is proof that we're pursuing our business goals. So I think that even though it feels like we haven't made any progress because our income is the same, in the lonely chapter, the output is not the income. The output is you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've hit my personal goals. I still think I have a lot of growing to do.
Really? I think I'm perfect. I'm kidding. Right. But if you're working toward it, that's
yeah. It's just right? This week I feel like I didn't work towards it. Can
you pull something out of it? Like, can you learn a lesson from it?
Yeah. I think I have learned a lesson from it.
Then it's not a week wasted.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
Mm-hmm. So when I'm at that sticking point, when I'm hitting that wall in the rowing piece, I've got this fucking fantastic mental workout that I've used recently with eating healthier, right? Because I'm the guy who will wake up in the morning and do cardio, fasted cardio, and then eat breakfast, and I feel fucking great. And I take a cold shower and I eat lunch and I'm healthy, and I eat dinner and I'm healthy, and I have like, a snack and I'm healthy. And then it's like 12:30 and I'm getting ready for bed and there's a brownie on the counter and I'm like, I want that brownie. And I can't stop thinking about it. And then my body tells me I'm hungry. And I think about eating something healthy like celery. And it's like, no, you don't want that. You want the brownie. Go for the brownie. And it is so difficult for me to tell myself to stop. I've tried replacing that with healthier snacks and that works. But right now there are still brownies in our fucking kitchen from when we did our last day of desserts last week. And it's so fucking difficult to say no to these fucking brownies. I'll open the box and smell it and just stare at it. And I just look at it. But I had this thought 2 weeks ago at work when someone brought donuts in, and I opened it up and it's just shitty Dunkin' Donuts from like 10 hours ago sitting there, but I want it anyways because I'm bored. And I thought to myself, what do I want more? This donut or this brownie or the physique that I'm chasing? Because so far today, 70% of the way through the day, you've fucking hit every stroke. So are you going to take a stroke off and have this brownie, or do you want a perfect hour more than that?
Yeah. That's an idea that I try to apply as much as I can in my life, because I think that it's important to continue to hold yourself accountable even when it's hard. I had a point. It was a good one too.
Keep thinking. I have yet to succumb. I have yet to answer the question when I ask myself, what do I want more, this brownie or the physique I'm chasing? I have yet to answer with this brownie. It's not happened.
Yeah, I think that it's also important when you set out goals for yourself. It's really, really important to maintain them, because if you do not maintain them and you don't abide by them, you set a precedent in your mind that it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail yourself.
Right.
Right. And that's a really dangerous and powerful idea. You know, for example, if you tell yourself you're going to go to the gym today and then you don't, that sets the precedent in your mind that it's okay to miss a day at the gym. And then what's to say that you won't miss tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day?
Right.
And that's, you know, that's what I felt like this week was like. At the start of the week, I was like, oh, like, it's okay. Like, you know, we're juggling a few things, or we had the podcast, and like, yeah, I didn't get as much done this week, but like, that's okay. You know, and that set the precedent for the rest of my week. And I just felt like super like unmotivated and kind of like lost. And so I'm pulling myself back on track tonight, you know, starting after and during this, and going to abide by the goals I set out and achieve the things that I told myself I would achieve, because I think that will reset how I perceive myself and reset the motivation and the drive that I have.
You know what we can do as well, like as a solution to this? Earlier in this week, you told me about some time that is going to be freeing up for you to get some more work done coming up. And we should sit down and get a game plan for like all of the work that we need so that you can start to just fucking crush it. Right now,
I was going to mention, it's so funny you mentioned that, because literally on the drive here, I was thinking about this stuff, and I was thinking about my week and disappointed myself. I just feel like fucking hollow this week from, you know, the shit I didn't do that I wanted to do and should have done.
What did you want to do?
I wanted to, you know, last week I was really burnt out from the car stuff, so I didn't go to the gym.
Right. Me too.
And I had a lot of laptop work to catch up on from, you know, our 3 days of the car stuff and wherever. Right. So I didn't go to the gym, but I told myself this week I would go, and I didn't. And I was like, fuck me. Like, I fucking didn't go. And I'm like, yes, I didn't pig out really on snacks. I had like a day or two where I had like some chips and stuff like that, but I was better about food this week, which I'm happy about. But like in terms of the gym and the laptop work, I just kind of felt lost, or like I was putting stuff off or getting distracted and shit like that. So that really frustrated me. And on the drive here, it's so funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking, you know what? I think it would be really helpful for me to sit down with Mason and develop like a super solid game plan of what we need to do next and next, right? Because right now I feel like there's a bunch of tasks that are like 85% complete. And like, it's not that I don't know where to start, because I could obviously do any of those. It's just that I don't feel directed or like amped up to, you know, get the last 15% out of these next Canva things that I've already done a lot of Canva work on.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, I think that developing a game plan with steps to reach those goals, which is something that I assume we'll talk about later in terms of goal setting. Right. It would be really valuable. So I agree. I think it would be valuable to sit down and kind of develop that through. Because I've just, you know, I've disappointed myself this week. I think that, as you've brought up, that's an important lesson. I can learn from it. You know, as Hermosi says too, one bad thing doesn't have to spiral into three. Right. So I take this week as it is. Yes, I fucked up this week.
Speak about the three bad things.
The three bad things from Hermosi's concept is like, people, the general populace always says, oh, bad things happen in threes. And Hermosi says, no, one bad thing happens, and then you let two others happen. For example, you get into a car accident. Don't know who that would be, right? You get into a car accident, and then because you're stressed out about this car accident, you leave your bags behind your car and then back over them and break both your laptops, right? And then after that point, you neglect to check your mail, and the IRS sends you a bill for overdue taxes. And so now you're like, oh my God, bad things happen in threes, right? Whereas in reality, one bad thing happened. I hit a car, right? They pull out in front of me, I hit them. And then that spiraled into me being stressed out and not focusing on the fact that my bags were behind my car, and then breaking $2,000 worth of shit. And then that spiraled into me being stressed out about money and, all over the place and not checking my mail when the IRS clearly sent me something that I should have paid attention to, right? So it's like I could have prevented the latter two by just resetting myself after the accident and be like, okay, it's cool. Like, yes, this is an issue, but let's focus on what we have at hand and what we need to do forward, right? So bad things don't come in threes. One bad thing happens and then you let two others happen after it.
Right. And I think that the way to get yourself out of that rut is the issue with that rut is the first bad thing throws you so off kilter and sucks up so much of your time that you can't or shouldn't dedicate your time where it needs to go. So when you get in a car accident, now you've got to get a fucking lawyer and figure out where to get a new car and figure out what to do.
I had car. 3.
Right. So you have a lot more stuff to do that takes time and money, which is going to take time away from laptop work, from gym, from meal prep, from food. Like time is a limited resource and you can't do everything with it. And I feel that when something throws you off kilter like that, a priority list is absolutely integral. And it's really difficult because the things that you want to do, like laptop work, and are important to you, like laptop work, might need to take a back seat that week. And ultimately, the first things to go for me are usually gym and food. So I'll just buy fast food and I'm not going to work out today. I don't have time. I got other
Same things that go first for me too.
Right. And one of the Vision 79 goals is that doesn't happen anymore. I have so much financial freedom that I can hit the gym every day and eat well every day. But the fact that I have to cook all my fucking food, dude, I've got this one food right now. It's a protein pasta with ground turkey and like a creamy sauce. It's so good. I'll eat that every day until I die. I don't care. I don't need a private chef. I'm just going to make vats of this and eat it every day. It's so good. But the gym is tough. It takes a lot of time, right? It's like fucking 30 minutes of driving there and back total, plus the time to get changed, plus the time to work out. You're looking at a 2-hour commitment minimum, right? And that's tough to fucking carve out every day when I have to be at the office for a 9 to 5.
Right. But I think the alternative is that you let yourself down and you don't do it, and then you set a mental precedence that it's okay to give up.
Right. And so you need to understand where your priorities are at each week, because some weeks there are more important things to do than the gym. The problem is if you tell yourself the gym is important and then you don't do it, then you violate your own rule, like you're saying, and that's the problem. That's what you feel behind. So setting the priority list is important, which is exactly what we're going to do in terms of business. So that way, even if business isn't your number one priority, when you get to the business stuff on your list of priorities, you know what to work out in that list. So that's what we'll go through. But in terms of myself in setting my own goals, I was really fucking shit at it, I thought, for a while, specifically in sports, because I would pick a goal and then bail on it like halfway through. So I tried soccer and boxing and basketball and karate and piano. And I did them for a couple of years and I bailed on them. It just wasn't for me until I found rowing. And I realized that skipping from goal to goal and bailing on it halfway through, my dad would always tell me, you need to stick to something, like fucking pick a thing and then do only that. Mm-hmm. And my mom would always tell my dad, well, he's just trying out different things to try and grow as a person. He just wants to be well-rounded. Yeah. Really, it was neither of those things. I wanted one thing to get really good at and stick with it, but none of those things were my thing. So really, if you're trying different car setups until you find the one that sticks, then you race it. So play around with what you want your goals to be, but once you pick one, fucking run with it. And I feel that all too often, myself included, I would pick a goal growing up and then realize that it's not really what I want to do halfway through. And that's a difference. There's a difference between that and the woman in the red dress. And I feel that the difference is that compulsion that you spoke about earlier. If you aren't including words like need and must and achieve and like, I am going to, like, I am obsessed with this thing, then it's probably not the right goal for you. You should probably pick a different goal. If you're not obsessive about it, if you aren't disciplined about it, if you're not going to commit to it every day. Like, dude, I tried to get out of every karate lesson for 4 years. I didn't want to do it. It's a shit goal.
Do you think you can actually influence your mind to be motivated about something, even if you are initially not motivated about it, by changing the vernacular and the words that you use? For example, like, if I'm not like that motivated to stop eating chips and I'm like, I should stop eating chips, but then if I were to change my vernacular to I need to stop eating chips. Do you think that by changing your vernacular, you can actively convince yourself that you actually need to do it and it is important?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're not super committed to it. Because in your suggestion, you didn't love chips and you didn't hate chips. You were pretty in the middle. Did you listen to the Joe Rogan thing that I sent you earlier this week?
I think I was the one that you sent.
It's fucking
Who was
nutty. I don't know his name. He's an older guy. He was like, I'm going to have a meltdown on the podcast.
Oh, yes, I listened to that one.
Yeah. So he talks about how Google can change the suggested results when you Google something.
Yeah.
And the studies that he has run have shown that if there's somebody who is uncertain about something, kind of on the fence, they don't know which way to lean, Google can heavily influence which way you fall. Mm-hmm. And odds are, if you're Googling something, you're probably uncertain about whatever you're Googling. It's why you're Googling it. So they have a lot of power over the way that you think subliminally because of their suggestion. The power of suggestion is really strong. So when it comes to something that you're intermediate about, like chips, right? Let's say that your end goal, like the ultimate goal, is I want to eat healthier. You can break it down into smaller goals like, well, I don't love chips, but I eat them a lot, and I don't hate chips. But if I can just tell myself that chips are poison and they're going to cause me to die at 35 and get AIDS, then I'm going to stop eating chips. It's easy to do if you can suggest yourself into it. The struggle comes in to where you're in love with something and need to stop doing it. That's difficult. That's tough to do. But I think that's a different type of goal. I think generally speaking, you should pick a goal that you're passionate about because it's easier for you to keep that fire lit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
sure. I agree.
When you ask yourself, what do you want more, this thing that's in front of me that's easy or the long-term goal, your answer should always be the goal at the end.
Yes.
So the path that I have laid out for Vision 79 for us that we're following is identify a product, find investment, build out the business, execute the business, optimize it, scale it, and then repeat for whatever businesses that we want to do. And we've got the first two boxes checked. We're just waiting on the third box, which is fucking sick. Means we're on our way. And I feel that the step from investment to build out is the toughest step always. Mm-hmm. So I'm not too discouraged about the amount of time that it's taking. I know it's an eventuality, and I know that the more time we have before actually putting rock to stone, mm-hmm. we have a lot of opportunity to develop the business further like we're doing, like we did this week, and really think outside the box and take that extra time. Everybody who's in business right now, in the category that we're going into, I had this thought this week. Everybody else actually started at the point when I wanted to start several months ago. And the fact that we're being forced to wait and the fact that we are not patient people, patience is figuring out what to do in the meantime, right? And what we have figured out to do in the meantime is just fucking optimize and brainstorm nonstop and iterate until it's perfect. And that's steps that most people bailed on. They didn't do that. They did it after they started their business, and it kind of fucking sucks. But ours is going to be really good because we took the time to do it beforehand, even if it's forced. This brings us to our third segment, which is after you've defined your goal and you've started to pursue your goal, what do you do once you've achieved your goal? What can you expect once you hit that? And to harken back to the Hormozi quote from earlier about you've already hit goals you said would make you happy, and guess what? You're not happy. I think that identifying what the end state is going to feel like is really important. So what do you do once you've hit your goal? Many people set goals that can be achieved in rapid succession: graduating college, getting a job, getting a wife, getting a dog, having a kid, boom, 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 boom. That can all happen honestly within a single year, which is the epitome of short-term goals and low satisfaction. And then they fall into a depression afterward, even though they've supposedly hit their goals. They don't understand that the pursuit of the goal is what makes them happy, not the state of having attained one, right? And I want to explore this a little bit because I found this Hormozi quote on his Twitter earlier this week. It's a Haitian proverb, and it goes, "Behind mountains are more mountains. Goals aren't finish lines, they're mile markers." At no point are you going to achieve a goal and then sit down and say, okay, I did it, I'm done. Because if you're done, die. That's the epitome of grow or die. It's like, if you're done, then okay, it's time for you to go. Mm-hmm. I have this analogy. I really like the mountains perspective. because I can consider life as hiking through mountains as the sun is setting. And when you've grown tired of hiking, you can rest and enjoy the sunset from the peak that you've made it to. Very few of them make it above the clouds. Most watch from the foothills, but they each watch the same sunset. We're all going to the same place. We're all going to die. I feel like if you love to hike, then the view at the end is just a bonus. But most people don't really enjoy hiking, and that's why they stay in the foothills, because the sunset to them looks the same from down here as it would from up there, and it's not really worth it. I happen to like hiking, and I happen to like beautiful sunsets. I really want to see what that looks like from above the clouds, but I think that if your goal is to see that sunset at the end, you're missing the point, which is hiking is good for you and it's a fun activity. And I feel that goal setting is reviewing trail maps and packing your bag in this instance. And if you don't do it, you won't get very far without doing either.
How do you differentiate between, like, in the analogy, right, as you're enjoying the hike up to the top of the mountain, how do you stop yourself from not stopping at every single little goal along the way or a little spot along the mountain and enjoying the view at these little points along the way, right? Like, how do you balance that in your mind, or what's your opinion on it?
I actually have a point about this later on in the segment, but I'll talk about it now, which is, will we ever rest on our laurels? Will we ever...
I don't know what laurels mean.
To rest on your laurels.
Although I did read that question that you emailed me earlier, but I read the first half of it and I was like, I think I got the point, and so I wrote about that. But
to rest on your laurels is essentially a saying that is to cease your work and just, it's basically retirement. It's resting on your laurels.
That's what I assumed it was, and then that's what I wrote about. But
it's essentially just enjoying the fruits of your labor and no longer continuing to work. And I related this to my scenario here by saying, I think I'll pause to appreciate the view as I climb, but I really doubt that I'll stop. So right now, I'm getting it over the bunny hill, right? And as I hit the top of the bunny hill, I'm taking a look at where I am, and I'm like, wow, this is a beautiful sunset. And then I'm looking at the next peak, and I go, I bet I can see even more of the valley from up there. Actually, in real life, my apartment complex is in an underdeveloped area. So there's a lot of really flat land. It's on the other side of a highway. So like there's the highway right here, and then all of civilization. And then out here, there's fucking nothing. And as I leave the apartment complex, I'm forced to drive down a short road towards the nothing before turning back around the other way to go to the interstate. And every day that I leave, in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, that tiny little road, it's one of my favorite moments of the day, because the sky is so stunning in so many different ways every single day. Rain clouds, beautiful sunsets, different cloud formations, clear skies, sun. There's just so much open sky and open earth in front of me that I don't get to see in my daily life around here, or even on the beach. Like, beach sunsets and sunrises are different because the ocean is just like flat mass, but this is like land mass. It's really interesting. It's really different, and I absolutely love it. So although I'm living in an apartment in piece of shit Melbourne, Florida, I still take moments every day when I leave my apartment complex to appreciate that view. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to sit in a lawn chair there until I die, like literally, right? I'm off to work, and I'm going to enjoy this view as much as I enjoy the view from my $50 million home in Beverly Hills when I'm fucking 90, right? Or I really want an apartment in that Aston Martin tower in Miami. Like, it's all the same sunset. It's just your perspective. And I really appreciate the perspective that I have now, even though it's not at the heights that I want to get to. So I think that it's actually important to pause and appreciate the view, but getting stuck in it isn't for me, because it's not really about the view. It's about the hike.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think this week, if anything, rang true towards the fact that I am not happy being stagnant or feeling stagnant, right? I think that I get my happiness and my joy out of making consistent progress towards a goal and pursuing that goal. So I think that, similar to you, it is very unlikely that there will be a point in time where I just completely rest.
Yeah. Have you talked in therapy about micro goals?
No.
So this is something that I do in the gym. So it's chest day, and I don't want to fucking be at the gym. I'm tired, right? I have my regular routine. I hit incline barbell, I hit chest press machine, and then I hit cable flies, and then I do some tricep stuff, right? Those are the 3 go-tos, and I'm fucking tired. I don't want to fucking do it, and I honestly don't even feel like I have enough energy to hit the same weight and reps as I normally do, and so I don't. In my app, I have every chest exercise I've ever done recorded, and I scroll to the bottom. I scroll to the chest exercise that I haven't done in 6 months, and I'm not used to, and I don't really remember, but I look into it and I go, how much did I do? Fuck, I only did 20 pounds 6 months ago. I can do way more than that now. And so then I'll go and I'll do that workout, and it feels like a win because it's a small goal and it's relative to what I usually do. So usually if I can add 5 pounds to my bench press, that's awesome progress. But today, if I don't feel like it, what if I double the weight of an exercise that I haven't done in 6 months?
Yeah.
I'm still getting the workout in, which was my end goal, but I feel better about it because I'm getting a small victory. So micro goals, I identify as setting one small, very attainable goal every day that you can hit. Like guarantee slam dunk, you're going to hit it. So that even if all else fails, if you get in a car accident and you don't call your lawyers and then you miss your IRS bill because you crushed your laptop, if you still, I don't know, walked your dog that night because that was your goal, then it all relative to itself falls together. So if you're having a shitty week or a shitty day, setting a really, really short-term, super attainable goal that isn't big, hairy, and audacious, and you don't get lost in the sea of all the work that still has yet to be done, having one small attainable goal to keep your head above water can be helpful. That's what I use in the gym.
Yeah, I like that. It goes along with my idea earlier of that you have a big goal and then you have the small little goals in between.
Yeah. Even fully unrelated. So like a great one would be if you feel like your week has sucked or whatever, you could have a bunch of Porsche parts on the back bench and then you're just progressively cleaning them. And so your goal tomorrow is, dude, I'm going to clean one spark plug for the Porsche. And so you go to work and they yell at you about your time card. And so you get fired and then you go to the bar, you spend the rest of your money on all that. Now you're broke and you go home and your cats have died. And you're like, man, today's a shit day. But then you go in the garage and you take literally 35 seconds to clean one spark plug. You're like, all right, I got my goal done for the day. Even though the rest of it's in the shitter, you still got the one thing done. And that, I think, on the fragile human psyche can be really valuable. Small wins are really valuable, just moments.
Yeah. I think that's what I lacked this week.
Yeah, but that's a lesson that you've learned, right?
Yeah.
So there won't be another podcast like this with the same lesson. And if there is, then we can actually have an audience call us out on it, which is actually pretty sick when it comes to podcasting, because we can preach all this shit and then they can call us out on our bullshit. So like one of the things that I wish I had done was talk to Derek about the tea. Now, having seen that it's not like a spite move or whatever, I'm like, man, I probably could have just asked Derek, like, hey man, why don't you fill it up all the way? And like, it kind of would have squashed everything. But instead I tried to subliminally send him a message by not tipping and then tipping and like whatever. I was trying to not verbalize it because I didn't really want to be outwardly rude. And I wanted to see what his character and personality was like on his own without my influence. Because I don't want anybody to just cater to my needs. I want to see who they are as a person.
I think both can be valuable.
I think so too.
There are situations where I think it's valuable to take a step back and kind of test the situation without being too direct. And then I think there's also power to being direct.
Yeah.
It depends. I don't have a clear answer about like what I use when and why.
Could be a good podcast topic.
Could be.
Maybe we will, because this is a direct example where I can think of myself as being hypocritical, which is being blunt and just talk about it outright. And then I didn't do that. And I waited for someone else to speak on my behalf and get that done. I think that if this were not a new person in my life, then I probably would not have waited. I would say something. So like, if you pour me a tea and you pour it halfway up, I'd be like, what are you doing? But given that this was a new person in a new setting that I pay attention to, because I pay attention to details at the bar with the service industry in general, I like to pay a lot of attention. Waiters and waitresses at restaurants hate me, or love me if they do well. But I paid attention to it. Although I think that I waited like 3 weeks. I probably could have said something after I got the fucking point after 2 weeks, right? So maybe that's something to reflect about. But anyways, the next question I have is, how can one cope with the onset of depression once they've hit their goal? Do they start from scratch and start over with a new goal? And my response to that is no. Don't start over with a new goal. I follow the Hormozy principle, which is don't sell your business until you have another business plan ready to go and all you need is the money to do it. The reason you should be selling your business is to fund the next one. So similarly with goals, you shouldn't really complete one goal without having another one in the chamber ready to go. So that can be having one major goal with like several smaller goals broken out. That way, every time you finish one of the smaller goals, you still have the major goal you're working towards. But if you finish a major goal, you should have something else ready to go. Otherwise, you're going to fall into that slump and you're going to struggle to make another big audacious goal, and then it's not going to happen. I feel like that's where our friend is at. He doesn't have a big goal right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the depression of finishing a goal can be dangerous. So I like the perspective of having something ready in the chamber for you to do once you complete the thing that you're about to complete. I think that's powerful.
Have you had that before?
Oh, for sure.
Goal depression?
Yeah.
Name one. I've got one ready if you need a second.
I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's just like general depression. It might not be goal depression. I mean, well, I don't know. I guess for a long time I wanted another vehicle, and then I got another vehicle, and then I was like, well, like this didn't really like make me like happy. I just like have another vehicle, which is useful, but I guess it wasn't really like goal depression. It was just like, that's more along the lines of there was at one point in time where you said the things you have today wouldn't make you happy, right?
Right.
It's more along the lines of that.
Right. I think having the second car is useful, although that seems more like our friend who said, I'm only happy when I'm buying things. So it's like attaining something is fun and happy, but then once you have it, it's like, okay, well now what? Like I just have it. Right. I think that I had this really badly when I graduated college. I was really amped up for my college graduation because my girlfriend all throughout college was getting the same degree at a different school. And she was really passionate about engineering and I was really passionate about her. And so the fact that we were going into the field together was really, it was a strong bond. And I really wanted her at my graduation. I have this visualized. My Vision 79 before graduating college was my graduation with her. And ultimately she didn't end up going. And it kind of fell flat. I was still happy to be there. I still had a special moment with my dad because growing up, I wanted to be an engineer like him. That's where it came from. And so it was still special, but it just fell flat compared to what I had built it up to in my head. And then after that, I realized, well, now what? Because I have a job lined up. So like, I've kind of hit all my goals. Now what do I do? And so I was stuck for a period of time until you and I started our business venture where it like, I just didn't have any direction. I felt stuck and I felt shitty. But now that we have our vision, I want to talk a little bit about what the end state of the vision looks like in specifics, like big dream. I have a lot of shit written out for big dream. Do you have anything written out?
No, one bullet.
Okay.
I actually had a lot about the previous sections, like a lot, but I ended up not going over much of it. I don't know. Do
you want to circle back to anything?
No, let's go to the big vision. I think that's most fitting right now.
Big vision. This is, once we've hit all of our goals, this isn't really like self-development or anything like that. I just want to talk about the cool shit that we want to do. So in revamping our brand, I got ChatGPT and I had it generate an image of a McLaren F1 and an F40 driving together. And I did a bunch of different generations and I was like, dude, none of these really look like the way I want them to because none of them match the color scheme of our logo because we've got like a blue and green logo now. And in doing that, I was like, hang on. And I remember, dude, okay, so Charles Leclerc has put it on pole in Azerbaijan, Baku, the last 4 years in a row. And he has not won any of them. So he put it on pole for all of them. Crazy, crazy pole laps that the car shouldn't be capable of. And then he loses it in the race because the car just isn't fast enough. And in Azerbaijan, a lot of the races happen towards sunset, and there's like a beautiful like golden hour where they're driving, and someone put together a compilation of a hard cut between Charles Leclerc's sunset lap at Azerbaijan, setting it on pole position, and Max Verstappen's storm lap at Brazil from last year.
I remember this cut, yeah.
Oh my God. It makes my cock hard every time I watch it. I love this fucking video. And the storm lap is just so menacing. Max is the only one on track because it's about to fucking pour and there's lightning and shit. He's the only person on track and he rips out pole by like 2 seconds or something like that. It's just fucking, it's so dominant. And so when I was watching the AI generated images come in, I was like, stop. Because all of them have been sunset images or sunrise images. And I was like, make storm clouds. And like the first one it did, I was like, oh my God, I put everything down. It's 3 hours past when I said I was going to go to sleep. And I was like, generate more. Like, it looks so cool. So the first one I have with the Vision 79, like what I think of when I think of it is us driving these cars together. That's the first thing I have. Real races is Gentleman Drivers is another one. Go into all the Daytona 24 races. I'd love to do one together. Having paddock passes to different major like Formula One races and stuff would be great. Getting to meet the drivers, maybe even owning a racing team would be cool. I want to own a bunch of houses, Beverly Hills, Montana Ranch, like a wide range, a coastal house in the Keys. I want all kinds of houses. I really like the open floor style plan where it's like you can press a button and the glass wall pulls back and then the kitchen is the living room, is the balcony. That's super cool. I've got a super clear vision of green McLaren F1, like the one at the Revs Institute, in my living room overlooking like the valley. So I really want a drive-in garage where I can pull that car in to have the car inside like with me all the time, and then I can back it out and take it out. I think a 20+ car garage would be cool. You don't want that many cars though.
No.
How many do you want?
Like 6.
Which ones?
Ferrari F40. What?
Miata,
yeah. Miata. Ferrari F40. Ferrari 308. Porsche 911 GT3 RS.
Ferrari F40 Marlboro Edition.
Actually, yeah, I didn't say Ferrari F40 LM GT. I think they had a GT denomination that was a little bit more wild than the regular LM, whatever that means. And probably a Porsche 964 or 935.
I don't know this.
It's like the older 911 body style.
Got it.
Not 935. I misspoke. Sorry. I think there was 930 or 964. Those are the two older 911 body styles. For like 70s, 80s.
Is that like the one that Chris Harris drove? It's like the super done up one with the crazy exhaust.
I think that was a 930.
Okay.
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah, sort of that.
Got it.
Something done up like a Singer style one like that. I'd love. I guess there are a few more now that I'm like thinking about it, but
like what?
917K.
Race cars?
Yeah, race cars. Old Formula One style cars, like Lotus 49 style, Lotus 79 style.
The bird cage.
Yes, the bird cage. The older, like the early 2000s 911 GT3s. I love those a lot. CLK GTR would be fucking
the CLK GTR was the one to flip at the Nürburgring 5 times, right?
Yes.
Drive it everywhere but the Nürburgring.
Yeah, I like cars that can kill you. Viper is a good one. First gen Viper.
P1 tried to kill drivers.
Yeah. McLaren F1 would be sick too. I got to give you credits on that one. That one's cool.
It's the only one I think about. It was like 500.
Yeah, I'd really love.
You got to get
2008. That's twin turboed.
Koenigsegg's in there.
Koenigseggs.
Not Pagani. You can't not have a
Pagani. Zonda R.
Yep.
Zonda R is my favorite of the Pagani lineup.
I really love the new Bugatti, the Cento DSG.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it looks so mean, man.
It does.
It looks so cool.
There are a ton of race cars that I want. I want a Schumacher Ferrari.
I really want like an older Koenigsegg, like this CCXR, like the older ones when they were kind of like first starting out. It was just like raw and fucking crazy.
A Super Miata.
I mean, they're still crazy, but what?
A Super Miata.
Super Miata.
That's pretty much what it was.
Yeah,
because he drove that yellow one. Or still owns.
Yeah, he's inspired by like the flavor of the Miata driving experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that inspired the first Koenigsegg 6, right?
Yes.
So Super Miata.
He still has his yellow one. I think it's a 92 yellow sunburst.
So I have a proposition here then, because you don't want 6 cars. It's probably closer to 60 or 600. But what if we had?
My point is that I want each of my cars to be unique in their own respect and reflect a part of my personality. Like I don't, what I don't want, or what I think I don't want at least, is like 400 cars that all kind of are the same and then just have like different paint codes or like different interior specs. Like that's not really my flavor. I want each car to be unique in its own sense and a reflection of my personality, and then something that is like I can drive it and enjoy it. For example, with the 308, I want to buy it as like a stock 308.
Right.
And then I want to, you know, probably against Ferrari rules, twin turbo it to mimic the F40 style twin turbo V8 or the oh my god, it was the 288 GTO.
I like the 288 GTO.
The 288 GTO.
That one does it for me more than the
V8 with the twin turbos. That's the same Ferrari F40 drivetrain.
Yeah.
So I'd love a like 308 that's a 288, or maybe a real 288 would be cool. But there's something about like taking the 308 and then modifying it to be like that I kind of like.
Right.
Like I like that it would be like my creation, not just like a bought 288 GTO.
Yeah.
Whereas like both would be super fun, but there's something fun about creating something yourself that I kind of enjoy, or, you know, probably at that point paying someone else to build it, you know. But yes, I want each car to be unique in its own sense. So I don't want a American Muscle Car Museum 45 1972 Challengers, every color and stripe pattern available. Like, that's not me.
I know why that sucks. That sucks because when you walk through the American Muscle Car Museum, you're like, oh, they only made 9 of these and you have 8 of them and they're not driven. They're just sitting here. It's like,
right.
Why did they bother making them if it's just going to fucking rot in this warehouse?
But also it's like if he has 8 of them, there are 7 other people out there that would greatly enjoy having that car.
Yeah.
But he just has to have like every color flavor of the same car. And it's like, it's the same car.
I really love the idea of having a huge collection of all different cars. Because if you have one Porsche 911, whatever code, it doesn't matter. Fucking pick it, right? There are so many other 911s that so many other people are enjoying. If this sat in a warehouse and wasn't driven 364 days out of the year, it's not a big deal because there are so many other ones out there, right? Even if you have Bugatti, they only make 50 of them, right? But you only have one and it's not driven very often, like, it's still not a waste. Yeah. But the problem with the American Muscle Car is that it is a waste because he has all of them not doing anything there.
Right. I really want each car to be unique. And now that you've had me walk through this, I have desire for well more than 6. But my point still stands.
Sure. Also, I think that if you see what makes an F40 special.
It was the first car that, to me personally,
let's pick
a different one.
Okay. What makes what was one of the other ones on your list? 911 GT3 RS.
Yeah.
What makes that special? Not to you personally, like a personal story, but like what makes the car unique?
It's a milestone in terms of engineering and design for production, sports vehicles.
Right.
It's incredibly fine-tuned. It's a car that has a lot of heritage behind it that is like, this is like the next face of what 911 is going to be. It's a wonderful driving experience, has a great motor. The feedback is incredible. It's mechanical. It's raw.
What can you possibly do to make it less special? The answer is put it next to 50 of the identical car.
Yeah.
Line up 50 of them. Because now there's a bunch of them and it feels less special, which is why you've seen the F40 rallies where all the F40 owners get together and drive them together. It's crazy, but it takes away the specialty to it, I feel.
Yes.
Like if I went to a track day and it's an empty track and there's one dude wringing out the neck of an F40, that's way more special than riding on the highway and seeing 50 of them.
Right. Or if I see a GT3 RS here in Melbourne, I'll pull up my phone and take a picture.
Right. Yeah.
And if I go to Pebble Beach, and I see a GT3 RS, like, I'm not gonna really take a picture because there's a fucking Koenigsegg 1 of 1 right next to it. So,
right. Exactly.
You know.
So I think that there's a lot of credence to having just one or two.
Yeah. Or same thing in Miami. When you went, you saw a million Lamborghinis. You probably didn't take a picture of each one.
I sent photos of all of them to you. Because I sent you like 3 and you were like, wow, those are cool. And I was like, there's so many here, it's not even cool. And you were like, I think it's still cool. And I was like, I'm going to send you a picture of every single one. So every sports car I saw, I sent to you.
Right.
Not the G-Wagon.
But if you were there like by yourself without my influence, you probably wouldn't have taken a picture of each one.
Was there somebody?
But if a Lamborghini pulled up in front of Palahana, you'd probably
take a photo.
Picture.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a difference.
Yeah, there is a difference. So here's my proposition. We have a joint museum like the Revs Institute. Where people can come and pay to see these cars, or maybe even it's free. And we have people educating people. We've got a movie theater with different movies playing and shit, documentaries. Right? We have pro drivers come in to give speeches. We've got a whole crew of mechanics like working on these cars in the back of the garage. There's a connected track. There's 2 tracks. One you can race karts on if you come to view the museum. Then there's another one for like owners to come and drive, and we can drive on there too. And the entire collection is just our personal collection of cars, right? So none of the cars there are owned by other people, but we have the staff drive them just to keep them running because we own so many, right? But we are constantly rotating them because maybe I want to drive my F1 that week, so I have it shipped out to wherever we're living and working, right? And in its place, I put whatever new car I get there, right? So that way all of our cool cars are in one spot. And how cool would it be if you got to go see Michael Schumacher's personal collection of vehicles? It'd be sick, right? It's kind of like, or Joe Rogan. That's a great example. Wouldn't it be cool if you could go to a museum and see Joe Rogan's personal car collection?
That'd be sick.
Alongside a museum of historically significant cars that aren't driven anymore because they're relics at this point, they're history, but like there's a huge emphasis placed on the history of the cars. That'd be sick.
Yes.
The last few things I have about Vision 79. Quality time with friends and family, which I don't feel like I get enough of right now because I'm so busy working, but I honestly would probably spend the same amount of time working. I would just have a little bit more time for friends and family. And then the time and resources to give back to communities I value, like rowing. There's a lot of youth programs that I feel really connected to, rowing included. Law enforcement education programs. I have learned through my girlfriend that in lower income communities, police officers are not seen as figures of safety, but as figures of only violence. And so it's easier or better for their likelihood. They're taught they're trying to kill you. You need to run or fight. And that is such an awful disillusion. It makes me really sad to see. So I think that training law enforcement officers to act more like heroes, and then also educating communities that that's not the way police officers are. They are, good people. I really have a strong connection to that too, as well as veterans. So that's what my Vision 79 looks like.
You know what's interesting is I look forward to looking back on this podcast from in 20 years and listening to what I thought about a car collection and then seeing where I'm at that point in my life. Because with Hot Wheels, when I was collecting those, I would chase after every single fucking special color of the same fucking casting. Like I'd have 14 McLaren F1s, and one was orange, one was blue, one was white, one was silver, one was silver and white, one was silver and blue, right? Like I'd get all of them, right? And I'm sitting here right now thinking about my car collection. I'm like, I just want tasteful ones and blah, 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 blah. But if I get to a point where there's $1 billion in my bank account, am I going to have the mindset of I want each different Mr. Chrome of this same 911? I'm curious.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but I'm still curious to look back on it and see.
I think because Hot Wheels don't have the same historical significance as full vehicles. You can't drive a Hot Wheels car.
Yeah.
You can't experience a Hot Wheels car.
You know what would be sick?
What?
If you could, from 1965, if you could track down each car in the starting grid of the Formula One race in Monza that year and buy each one and then in your museum have the grid laid out,
That'd be
and people
sick.
could walk the fucking grid.
Dude,
it's
that would be so
1965.
sick. You could walk the
So
starting
fucking
grid.
sick. Yes,
That would be sick.
we could have like recorded audio playing with like models of like people in stands and stuff, and you'd walk down and each car would be laid out with a little plaque in front of it and like a dummy like wax grid girl or whatever holding the umbrella or whatever, like shit like that, right? And you
That would
could
be
walk through it.
Dude, it would be
Amazing.
also cool if you could recreate other historical moments. Like, let's say you had one of Vettel's cars, right?
Yeah.
And it's his first championship winning car where he crosses the line, but he has to wait to make sure that Fernando Alonso crosses the line lower than third so that he gets the championship. So like he's crossed the line and he's just waiting to see if he's going to win the championship or not, right? And his race engineers goes, just you wait, sunshine, or something like that. You could have that laid out. You could have the Senna and Prost crash at Suzuka at the last chicane laid out if you could find those cars. Romain Grosjean's cars out there. It's already in a display where it's like wedged under the guardrail or whatever. Dude, there's so many different things that you could to recreate.
I think
like
it'd be
static
so cool
imagery.
to recreate this stuff.
That'd be
And
so cool.
Even if some of the cars don't exist, you can always
replicas.
make replicas or models of them.
The stories are what's more important than the car.
Yeah, just the experience of people walking through that history, like literally walking through that history, I think would be amazing.
Dude, I'd really love to have collections of trophies as well. Like there are racing teams out there that have won races that don't exist anymore. Like the racing teams have been shut down. They have not been continued. So you could go track down trophies from them too.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool.
That'd be sick.
And
Got me excited.
we talked a lot today about a lot of different things, about achieving goals you never thought you could achieve. These are goals that we just mentioned, are goals that I did not think were achievable my entire life until 2 years ago when we graduated college and started to actually pursue business. I didn't think it was possible. And you really opened my eyes and told me, hey, if other people can do it, why can't you? They weren't born into it. Most billionaires are self-made. Most millionaires are self-made. They're no different than you and I. So we like to end each podcast with a segment that I like to call Dialing In. I'm going to read you a quote for you to think about going on throughout this next week to inspire you to work and follow the precedents that we set during this podcast. So the one for this week is from Alex Hermosi. He says, an easy way to spot talent. You can tell how good someone is at anything by the quantity and quality of the metrics that they track. So when I say this, I mean your goal should be in mind. If you aren't tracking, you don't care, and therefore you aren't progressing. If you have a goal, define it, lay out the process, and track your progress. Thanks for watching.